Hey everyone, Brody here with our new channel, Let's Table It. I have a copy of Lawyer Up Season 2 published by Manor Games. Season 2 adds more courtroom drama cases to play in this two-player only head-to-head card game where one player plays as the prosecution and the other as the defense. Each game starts with the discovery phase where players start or draft vital evidence and support their case, and they can also bury evidence that might help their opponent. The trial is next, where players can witness and play powerful arguments along with the evidence that they drafted into their examinations. Each and every game is different, but the lawyer with the best case with the most convincing arguments will be sure to get the verdict that they are after. If you are not familiar with the flow of the game from Season 1, I'd invite you to watch my Season 1 video before watching this one, as we will just show the newly added content with the changes that are involved into each case. So let's start in Lawyer Up Season 2. We have a private eye case, a divorce case, a casino heist case, and all the solo modes for the cases. And this is a standalone game that can be played without needing Season 1. And if you do have both seasons, you will also have enough cards to play the 2 versus 2 variant, which I will let you learn on your own. The private eye case lets the defense take on the role of the private investigator in the 1950s Hollywood noir setting where they have been framed for the murder of a popular film star. So in this case, the pressure is on the private eye, where they will need to divide their time between investigating clues to solve the real murder and also defending themselves in court. The prosecution will try to conspire the ringleaders to gain red herrings to then hinder this investigation. So now there is more than just a trial going on. There are some behind-the-scene type things adding to this already complicated mess. And well, the mechanics in this trial will change as well. It gives an entire shakeup for how to play the game. So as the defense, you will now be working to reveal cards from clue decks to discover who murdered the Scarlet and what weapon was used and where this happened in the city. Similar to Clue, each card will eliminate one of your suspects. The catch with that is that in order to investigate and reveal clues, you will need to play evidence cards from their investigation effect instead of using them in the courtroom to influence the jury. So you can't use them for both of those things. While playing, if the private eye is able to correctly guess the murderer, the weapon, and the correct crime scene, then they win the game. But they also need to make sure that they don't ignore the trial, because there are chips that are stacked against them in the trial. The prosecution, on the other side, represents a vast conspiracy of witnesses trying to frame the private investigator. Their goal is laser focused on the trial, and they will do their best to draft and utilize planted evidence in the courtroom. This player, as the prosecution, will earn red herring tokens as they sway and manipulate the jury, which they can place on the clue decks to hinder the private investigation's investigation. The defense will have 2 opportunities to try and solve the case: when the defense calls the defendant to the stand or during the closing statements of the game. And at that time, the defense will guess the culprit, the murder weapon, and the crime scene correctly. From all the cards, the player playing as the prosecution will choose one of each at the beginning of the game, so they get to choose what those things are. Only the defense will be gaining clues throughout the trial, and when a clue is gained, it must be immediately placed on a matching red herring spot on a proof card. When the card has all visible red herrings covered, then the proof is uncovered and collected by the defense. This is one step closer to gaining proof. Investigate actions can be used, and when doing this, a proof token is placed over the value on that card. It now has no value. But for each icon on the card, it will generate a clue token of that type to be placed on matching red herrings, or if you don't have that, they are placed on an ally card that is in play. The prosecution gains red herrings from card effects or when swaying a juror into a spot with a red herring token on it. When gaining those, they are placed on top of one of the proof decks that doesn't have the same red herring on it already. Next, have you ever wondered what it's like to get a divorce? Well, This might motivate you to find your problems and work together to solve them, because no one wants to deal with this mess that we have in this divorce case. This case focuses on a high-profile celebrity divorce between a billionaire tech CEO and a 90s television star. Unlike the other case, this one is more symmetrical, and the players both play as celebrities and are trying to get what they want. I'm not going to name any names, but you know exactly this scenario that you have watched on the news in real life. Now, these characters are dual-sided, so you can change them to male or female, so you can create any kind of marriage that you would prefer. Mechanic-wise, there are new attitude cards. These represent the emotional state that each character is in, and they also match one of the bias symbols in the game. Your attitude can change throughout the course of your trial, but each one gives you extra points for marital assets with the matching bias symbols that are on them. The other change for this case is that now you'll be fighting over and trying to sway marital asset cards towards you instead of a jury. Each asset card is double-sided and has an asymmetrical track where you can spend influence to sway the bias of that item. The victory point values on each asset are scored by the player who wins that asset. But assets can also be shared between players. This also allows the divorce case to be played competitively or cooperatively based on the strategies that chosen by each side, leading to amicable splits, financial victories, or spiteful losses. Do you think you will compromise for the sake of the children, or will you decide to drag each other through the mud to get the most assets that you think you want to be happier than you have ever been before? Next, imagine Ocean's 11, because the last case is the casino heist case where a team of thieves and swindlers have taken the majestic casino for all it's worth. The suspects were rounded up easily enough, but now trying to prove their guilt will be more difficult than imagined. The defendants seem overly confident within the courtroom. In this case, the prosecution is attempting to convict a majority of the gang responsible for the heist. The defense is doing their best to get as many swindlers exonerated as much as possible. The defendants are running the long con for sure. Throughout the case, both players will be dealt out double-sided con cards. Players are competing to assign these cons to defendants and flip them to the side that benefits them the most. A defendant's trial is resolved and scored when they complete their long con and are dealt 3 con cards. It is essential to deal the final con to the defendants you're winning to score them. The player who convicts or exonerates the most defendants wins the case. So this case skips the discovery phase and goes straight to the trial. The discovery phase is integrated into each round, and players start by drawing 3 cards each from their base decks. A new witness is called, and then each player draws a card from the con deck to look at, and it's placed face down near the witness. A round of discovery is done drawing 3 cards, 1 to keep, 1 to give, and 1 to bury. Since each player does this, now each player has 5 cards. You might think this takes the discovery phase fun out of the game, but many of the witnesses have discovery effects, and when drafting cards, you need to pay attention to those. Players play the questioning phase like normal, and after, both players will resolve their con cards, performing either the failure or the success effect on that card. A player can discard a claimed witness that matches their con to automatically meet its condition and succeed. The witness is then resolved as normal. The defendant cards each represent a separate trial, and each player is racing to win the verdict in it. The player with the most sway on the defendant wins that verdict, and whichever player wins the most cases wins the game. Lastly, the game comes with a solo expansion, adding new solo-based deck, personality cards, and case-specific cards effects that work with every single case so far. This reduces dice rolling and creates a better unique puzzle to work around each witness, as players will want to avoid triggering procedures and sidebar abilities that can set them back. Overall, these new cases all add new things, and each one is very exciting to play. Each case adds different things, which makes it feel surprising compared to the previous season. I mostly liked how you have different values to move the markers on your jury or in the divorce case for each item. It's not like season 1 where you move up depending on the jury number card that it's on. The private eye case is an asymmetric game, which is fun to do other things than just, focus on the case. It's fun trying to find the correct who, with what, where, find the real murderer. The divorce case was fun, one of my favorites, as you were trying to win the most assets. And then the casino heist cuts it down so that you have several defendants that each represent separate trials that players are reaching to win the verdict in. And players are trying to compete their cons during the rounds to also gain more benefits to win the game. Season 2 cases really did a good job stepping it up and giving us something better. I think although you can play these cases independently, season 1 cases, I would recommend doing those prior to doing these. The rulebook can be confusing in the season 2 with the new cases, and if you don't have a good base of knowledge from the other seasons, then you might get frustrated trying to figure out how things work. But if you do have a good base and know the basic concepts of the game, then adding this new fun stuff is easier to do. Although I wish the rulebook did clear up some questions better than it does, these cases are better, but those cases will help you prepare for these as well. The game can give you a story, but only if you read the cards to really try to get the story that you want. With some fun narrative elements in the game. If this is not your thing, then you don't need to read and it's not forced on you. The game also lets you try to figure out how to combo your cards together, how to do the icons links together to play the cards, but also how do you get, the most out of a card. Again, this is Brody with Let's Table It, where we get games to the table. Please like and subscribe to our channel. We are new and working hard to bring to you videos like this one so that you know if these games are ones that you want to get to your own table.